It's been a journey that we have come through, and the Lord has been gracious to us. But before we get to start off, allow me to introduce my panelists. I know Pastor Mueni has already been introduced, so allow me not to reintroduce her again. But allow me to introduce Pastor Hope Waiganjo. I know we have met her before, haven't we? And we have engaged with her. We loved her ministration. And I just want to give her her introduction. So, sorry. So, Hope Waiganjo, Executive Director, Bold Nivel Limited, Interpersonal Skills Coach, Trainer, Speaker, and Mentor. Hope is a personal and interpersonal skills coach, trainer, and professional speaker dedicated to empowering individuals to lead with confidence and authenticity. With specialized expertise in emotional intelligence, effective communication, leadership, and personal branding and image, she equips professionals with the tools they need to thrive in their careers, relationships, and personal growth journeys. As the founder of the Executive Director of Bold Nivel Limited, Hope has successfully trained and coached individuals across diverse industries, helping them to unlock their potential and build meaningful influence. Her passion for personal development shines through her work as a mentor to the women, inspiring them to boldly step into their God-given identity and purpose. She brings her empowering message to ignite clarity, courage, and calling in women who are ready to rise, lead, and live fully. She's joyfully married to Pastor Mueni Wambua, and together they are passionate about building strong, godly marriages. They serve together at Rock West Assembly, where they lead the Marriage Connect ministry and are blessed with 3 amazing children. Can we give it up for Pastor Hope Waiganjo? Karibu sana, Pastor Hope. Karibu sana, Pastor Mueni. And right in the middle is yours truly, Mercy Kago. You want to know who Mercy Kago is? All right. So this is Mercy Kago. Let me give a brief intro about myself so that then my panelists also get to understand. Mercy Kago is a seasoned insurance professional, over 25 years experience within the insurance space, recognized for her expertise in leadership, client relationship management, and risk advisory, business growth, and throughout her distinguished career, she has earned a reputation for integrity, strategic thinking, and steadfast commitment to delivering value-driven insurance solutions. Currently serving as the operations manager, Madison Life. And beyond that, beyond my corporate accomplishments, Mercy is deeply committed to community and church service. She serves on the board of Enable the Forgotten Children, where she contributes to initiatives focused on uplifting and supporting vulnerable children. She also serves as the chairperson of the Ladies of Purpose, a vibrant women's ministry within Syokimau. Can we give it up for our own Mercy Kago? All right, thank you so much. So I'm grateful to bring us these 2 powerful ladies, and I'm sure that the Lord is going to bless us as we take on the stage. So in this conversation, like Pastor said, every one of us is navigating a season, and if you're not entering one, you are coming out of one. And we just want to have a look at, what does resilience look like? What does it mean? And we're not going to be very complex. We're just going to have a conversation very easily. So I would take maybe from Pastor Mueni. What does resilience really look like, from a layman language?
I think that the simplest of ways to define resilience resilience is not the capacity to not break. Resilience is actually the capacity to break, but to know where to go to when you're broken, to know where to turn to even in the seasons where you feel you're broken. So for me, resilience is to be able to know that in this season, the only place where I can find my strength is to go back to God, to acknowledge that when I am weak, then I am strengthened in Him.
Amen, amen. When I'm weak, then I'm strong in Him. So, Hope, do you think resilience is something that we are born with, or is it something that we can build over time?
Thank you, Mercy. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Pastor Jesse, for having me. Resilience is something that I believe you learn, you grow in, and it is built. Just like with the gifts that the Bible talks about, you don't know you're patient until you're tested. And so even for resilience, we can only say you're resilient when you have gone through something. And so for me, I believe it is something that we grow in. And the beauty about it is that you can see a track record of your growth. As long as you're aware, you can always say, I went through this and this is where I am. Of course, we are all different and we are all wired differently. That's why it's very good to be gracious to others, because we may go through the similar situations, but others are built differently. Others will not break as much as others. But bottom line is, it is something that all of us can grow in. Yes.
Wow. So it means we can grow into resilience. We are not born resilient, but you grow into it. That's really awesome. So it means that we have a space from where we are, we still can grow into getting more resilient in our lives. Awesome. That's beautiful. So I think it is important that we look at the emotional awareness bit. And I look at the situations and challenges that we may have faced in life. And I would want to ask us, what situations tend to challenge emotional stability? And how do you usually respond to when you feel weighed down?
Mercy, that's a very wide question. It's a whole day of training. Yes, Pastor Hope?
Sure.
But allow me to try and summarize it. And I'll take it from a different angle. I'll summarize it by talking about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is our capacity to identify, interpret, and then accurately respond to the emotions both of ourselves and of the environment of those that we are interacting with. So it's the capacity to read the room and then respond appropriately. Now, sometimes the room that you need to read is yourself. How am I feeling about this? What is this thing saying to me? How do I respond to this? What is this thing making me feel? What is this thing making me aware of? What is this thing revealing about me? And then, now when you begin to figure out what it's revealing about you, then how do I respond to it? Because sometimes as women, you had a bad day in the office. Your boss really gave it to you. And then you come home, and instead of thinking, stopping and reviewing that day and processing it by yourself, you simply become a conduit and you go home and you give it to your domestic manager.
You
That's
pass it
not
on.
intelligence. You need to be able to sit down and say, you know what? It ends with me. Whatever my boss, maybe he was not having a good day, and that's okay. And I was on the receiving end. But that doesn't mean I need to be a carrier. It means I should be able to sit down with it, with the discomfort of it, unpack it, so that when I go to where I'm going next, I don't go and offload it on them.
Absolutely, very true. And I believe you're preaching to the choir, because many of us carry those burdens from the office, a whole workload, and you get home and you unleash it. And may the Lord help us not to be that kind of people. Allow me to just maybe dive in a bit. I know out of your experiences, you must have had very difficult and challenging situations. What would be some of the healthy habits that you'd have cultivated to ensure that you process difficult times successfully?
Wow. That question, again, these questions are very deep. We can spend a whole day here. Allow me to say this, because I know you've had our resumes and we look very polished. I know we're all glammed, but just like it has been said, we have navigated some tough seasons. And something that many of you may not know is that last year when I was here, I'm not diverting, I want you to connect with me so that you know that we are not just speaking, it's not textbook answers that we are giving. We want to give you human experiences. And one is the one that I want to share, which you may relate with because I was here during the She conference. Now, the first time I received a call to be a speaker here, it came, and I know even Pastor Jesse, I didn't tell her this, it came when I'd lost my mom, and I'd just come from the morgue. In fact, we were in the car going home, and my husband asked me, so are you going to do it? I think my response must have shocked him, because I told him, yes, I will do it. I have a few weeks, I have like 2-3 weeks, and I know the fact that God has allowed this invitation to come now, He's going to work to prepare me, He's going to help me, and I would want to go and be a blessing. And so I came by the grace of God. God helped me. Of course, it was a difficult season, navigating grief, and grieving a mother or a parent or a loved one, really, it's really tough. And that was not all, because the week that the conference was happening, we received news that my nephew had been involved in a grisly accident. And so a month later, I came for the conference, and the next week I was going to bury my nephew. That was exactly a month after my mom. So we have gone through different seasons as women, seasons where you're expected to be strong for others, but you have to show up. And for me, that was one where I looked and said, really, hope has grown, because I was able to show up mourning and still being able to show up for God. Now, to answer your question, one, of course, is crying. And women, I applaud you, because for us, we know how to let it out. I hope we all know that crying is very healthy. And so crying, of course, in safe spaces, that is one that really helped. Having a community around me, that was also another one, people just surrounding you and helping you to navigate challenging situations. Of course, they need to be safe spaces, because we're not talking about loss again alone. People navigate different things. It could be private matters in your family. You make sure that you're letting out in places that people can hold your information. The other thing is to go for therapy or to journal. People do different things to be able to navigate difficult situations and be able to build resilience. And so I feel like those are some of the areas, some of the ways that you can, in a healthy way, be able to navigate tough situations and build resilience. Yes, and of course, prayer and reading the word. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. You know, as you talk of grief, I know that's an area that has affected many of us, if not all of us, at one point or another. And as you speak of that, I speak of my own experience. I have lost 3 close relatives. Recently, my father, I have lost my brother, and at one point, I lost my sister a couple of years back. She was very close to me, very, very close. And I remember I used to pick her number. That is one of the numbers I remember to date, 0722775202. And I would dial it. I knew she wasn't going to pick, but I would dial it. So I would dial it, then mteja wa nambari hapatikani kwa sasa. Then one day, the number had been sold. It had been sold to somebody in Safaricom, and it was a lady. So the phone was picked, and I was like, where? I was like, hi. So I asked them, the owner of that number was my sister, and I would like to buy that number off. I for some reason, I just wanted to have that number, then probably can give to the daughter, then I would be calling it. And I pleaded with her. I asked her, can I pay 10,000? She said no. I said 20. She said no. I said 30. She said no. Then I knew I'm not going anywhere with this one. It was so deep for me, and that was like a year after. I still had not healed. So we have many ways of grieving, and listening to you engage, I know the kind of grief you have had to go through and how you navigated. Maybe you can just share practical experiences on how we can navigate grief and how to overcome it.
Can I begin by defining grief?
Absolutely.
Now, many times when you talk about grief, it's easy for us to wonder who died. But there are many things that cause grief to the human heart that is not necessarily a death. So things like relocation, moving from one job to another, moving churches. When someone comes here from another church, and they're actually grieving their old church, they're looking at you and they're like, in our church we do. So they're grieving, because grief is defined as an end of a life, of a pattern of a life season as you have known it. So that's it. That's it. When you think about grief within that definition, you begin to realize that grief is way wider than we think. And sometimes some of the most painful places that we can be in when we are grieving, unfortunately, is actually church.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very faint ear somewhere there. Because sometimes when we are grieving, we need support. We need someone to witness our grief, not to judge it, not to tell me what to do. You can't talk me out of my grief. If I've lost my child, what can you say that can change that? Your words, nothing. Nothing. So sometimes we get so consumed with, let me say the right thing, let me say the tweet-worthy thing, or is it something that I can post on X? But there's nothing that you can do when someone is going through the most difficult seasons of their life. However, what we can do is we can sit with them. Not to compare, not to tell them, when I went through my own grief, just sit with them. If the opportunity comes and if they ask you about how you navigated your season, you can share. But these are some of the tools that I learned when I was going through that season. Number one, so I lost my dad. And one of the things, I'm a daddy's girl, I'm a last born. So it was hard for me because I needed to find a love that would never go. Because this was a love that had gone, and I needed to find a love that would never go. So we buried my dad on 31st of December 2020. For the record, my dad died on 21st of December, which was actually the morning of my birthday. And so after we buried my dad on 31st of December, 1st of January came on 2021. And so I resolved in my heart that every day in the year 2021, I read Psalms 23. Because as far as I know, as far as I'm convinced as a Christian, I feel like Psalms 23 encompasses the fullness of our relationship with God, how He sees us, how we navigate the different seasons, how He carries us through, what He does to us, and what is our heart posture throughout the season. So I literally would stop, read. Not recite because it's a psalm I know of head. It's not recite, it is consciously, intentionally, sit down, read it, journal. So I did that. So I had a Bible. I read Psalm 23 in different versions. I journaled. Then I had a collection of music that carried me through that season. I did a playlist. And some of the times I couldn't even sing those songs. Those songs are just background music as I was crying, but they were still songs that played. And then I had people around me. Excuse me. I had people around me that I would be able to send a text and say, today is a hard day, pray for me.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think many of us are going through difficult moments, Hope. Maybe just to pick up from where Pastor Mueni was. How could we go through the pain without letting the pain define us? Be it a loss of a relationship, a job, a family, a child, financial. How could we let the pain not define us, but we go through it, hopefully?
Wow. It is very true that pain that is not processed can easily define you, and it can actually make you become bitter. And we see the story that comes to my mind is the story of Naomi, who, we all know the story. She went back after losing her family, and she told people, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara. Now, because this is how the Lord has dealt with me. And many people are there where you have allowed what happened to you to define you. Yet pain or whatever it is that you're going through, the circumstance that you're going through, is not supposed to define you. God is the only one who's supposed to define you. And whatever He has called you has settled it. And so how you allow not to be defined by pain is first to be anchored in the Word. I can't overemphasize that. Because as long as you're not anchored in the word, you don't know who you are to God, you don't know who you are, you don't know yourself. Of course, there is who you are in God, and then who you are as an individual, because we are all God's daughters, but we are all different as individuals. And that is the aspect of your individuality. Do you know yourself? I do coaching, and many times when I'm coaching people, many people don't know who they are. Because when you're asked who you are, you tell us your roles. I'm a manager, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. But many people have not really sat down to understand who they truly are. And that means that if your identity is not rooted, anything can give you a name. So get your identity rooted. First in God, by being so secure in who He says you are, that it doesn't matter what you go through, it doesn't matter what name your boss calls you. You know, you can look at him and say, you're wrong because I know who I am. It doesn't matter what situation you go through, and we will go through situations as long as we're on this world. It doesn't matter whether it is a broken marriage, because I know that is one area that really affects women, because we are relational. Whether it's a relationship that has ended, a bad relationship with a loved one, and those things, and maybe they have said nasty things to you, it is very easy to keep meditating on the things that have been said about you and even forget the truth that God has said concerning you. So for me, I think bottom line, get anchored in who God has said you are, and then get to understand yourself, get to know who you are. You know those things, I liked the testimony Pastor Mueni was giving of her friend who would take time off and go away alone. Many of us don't want to spend time alone. We don't even know ourselves. You don't know what you like. You don't know what hobbies. Like if we ask you, what are your hobbies? Cooking. Well, it might be a hobby, but cooking it's a life skill. We all need to cook. Something else that gives you joy, that recharges you. Those things that you can do alone and feel alive and feel excited. So get to know yourself. Many people don't know themselves, and it's something that really saddens me. So when you know who you are, nothing else can really cause you to lose your identity. And of course, process the pain. Whatever it is that you go through, self-awareness is very important. Sit down and understand what happened. How am I feeling? What can I do to get over this? So that you don't sit and mourn forever and sit down in that situation. And yesterday I was reading when Joshua, because I love this when it comes to pain and grieving, when God told Joshua after Moses had died, my servant Moses has died, now arise. And so mourning is allowed, we are allowed to grieve because we are human, and actually God allowed them to grieve because the chapter before that says that when Moses died, Israelites mourned for 30 days. So they had the time to cry and mourn, and then after that, they say the season of mourning ended. So don't stay in your pain for longer than you should. Mourn, deal with the pain, identify what it is and what it is making you feel, go through the emotions, have a community, but don't mourn for longer than you should. Arise, wash your face, tumebeba kuna sabuni, and walk the journey. Even if you're still grieving, purpose not to stay in that one place and even become sorrowful. So you can journey and you can walk as you're mourning. It is still okay.
Awesome. Amazing. Sure.
That's fine. One of the things about every journey, and grief is a journey, is that every journey has a destination. If you don't have a destination and you're going on a journey, unatangatanga. So every journey must have a destination. So one of the things I also ask myself is, what would recovery look like? Yeah? If I was, because I mean, maybe I had the benefit of the fact that I'm a grief therapist. So I asked myself, what would recovery from the loss of my dad look like? And so I had to have a very clear vision of what that place would look like. And then now start the journey. Now the thing about a journey is, there are milestones, there are bumps, you can have a puncture, there are other places where you flow, the road is clear, you're sliding very nicely. Then there are other places that are uphill. Then there are other places you must stop and take a rest. But as long as you know where you're going, you know what the journey looks like. Even 5 steps forward is still 5 steps forward in your journey. And so we must have clarity of what our journey looks like. And then about community, we must also ask ourselves, when I get to that place, who do I want to get to that place with? Now, me, I love people. So I knew, I want to get to that place with my husband, I want to get that place with my children, I want to get that place with my siblings. And so, how do I carry them along? Think about if we're traveling to Mombasa, and then someone stops at Njitwande and goes to the washroom. We will not say they've taken too long, shall we out and proceed? No, we will sit and we will wait for them. And if they take too long, we'll go back and check. Hey, yeah, are you okay in the washroom? Did something happen? You know. Yeah. So we check up on each other because we are all grieving. Different ways, but we are all grieving. So I knew where I wanted to go, and I also knew who I wanted to go with. And I also knew that I wanted to get there with Jesus. Awesome. So I carried him along. He carried me along.
Amen. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, indeed, we are in a journey, and so are we here. So I want you to look at the neighbor that's next to you. And Pastor Hope told us that we need to identify who we are. And ask your neighbor, who are you minus your title? Minus mimi kuwa pastor. Minus mimi kuwa chairlady of DLC. Who am I? Have a conversation around and let them know who they are. Minus title. Yeah, that's the most important. Yeah, so I'm asking here, who are we? You know, we are so easily defined by our titles. I am the MD of XYZ company. I am the da, and all that. But who are we besides those titles? And let's look at the support in the community as we nearly come to a close. How do we then get support from the community? I know it is very important that you're plugged into a church. That's why we are plugged into a small fellowship. We also plugged into small ladies of purpose groups. How do we then get support from those groups? And I want to pose this question to Hope. The fear of being judged. You know, it is important for me to look calm, collected, well knit, and made up. But I don't want to be judged. This is your chairlady. How can she just come in front here to be prayed for? I mean, I don't want to be judged. How do you overcome the fear of being judged? Or I am so-and-so, XYZ. How do I just come here and lay out my issues?
Wow. Did Pastor Mueni say that it is harder to mourn in church than anywhere else? Yeah. It is actually true. And it's because church folk are very judgmental. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an idea of how the other should behave. And that has made it very hard for people to be authentic and to show themselves. So we mask up a lot, even on Sunday. Like you were saying, that someone may not have had food, but if they tell us they didn't eat, we will judge them. So they will come well made up and say hi, and maybe they are dying inside. So how do we show up and go through what we're going through without that fear? I think it is a collective responsibility. As the children of God, can we learn to give each other grace, extend grace to one another? Yeah, I know if we were to have an opportunity, every one of us here will share a story of how they were judged, how they were misunderstood. But can we now look at ourselves? Have you judged somebody else? Have you failed to extend grace to somebody else? Because that's where it starts. When you decide, I will be giving grace to others, it will be a domino effect. All of us here will wake up one day and church will be a safe space. And I know we have leaders here and pastors. I also want to say that leaders also have a role to play, whereby let's allow some humanity in our spaces, in our churches, in our organizations, whereby we don't just applaud people for, huyu ni starring, they can really, that resilience definition that we had prior to this day, the one where someone knows how to hold it together, and those are the ones we applaud. We say, wow, you went through that and you're still standing. And then somebody else who is broken, who is not carrying their grief very well, we judge them. So it starts with us allowing people to show their humanity and us accepting that we are all, walking in this journey. And I agree that God allows us to cry, to mourn. Even Jesus himself mourned. So who are we, And so, again, if you know yourself, It is not easy, but if you know yourself, you will not be so concerned about people's words. So I think you just go back to self-awareness, understanding who you are. And I will share one example of myself that in this process of mourning mom, like you have said, it comes in places where you didn't expect. You are fine, and then in church you hear a song. So it happened to me a few times, like 2 times, and there are times I broke down in church. Imagine I'm seated in front, I'm on my knees with tissues, and I wouldn't care. I remember a friend of mine telling me, I'm sure there are people here who wish they could cry like you, but because they're not, because you want to look a certain way, you don't break down. For me, I'm not afraid of my tears in my Father's house. So please, let people judge you. You go through with your journey and heal. You will move faster. You will move ahead. They'll be judging you, but they'll be behind you. So encourage yourself, know who you are, and don't allow other people to define your journey for you.
Awesome. Yeah, let's not be afraid of our own tears in our Father's house. When we want to let go, let us, let it off. We have Slido, sound team, please. You can put for us the QR code there as we take on the last few questions. Please present. You can take a photo of that Slido and type in your questions in there as we carry along, as we just come to a close. Feel free to ask any questions and just sharing your comments. But as we come to a close, growing and going forward, how do we not just bounce back, but also move forward? You've navigated all this pain and the grief and these difficult situations that you have been. How do we just bounce forward, not just bouncing back?
One of the things that I love Thank you. One of the things the Bible says is that you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. And many of us must ask ourselves, what's the truth in this situation? What's the truth I'm hearing? What's the truth I'm learning? Because if you don't know the truth, you shall be bound and blinded by a lie. So know the truth. Ask yourself, what is truth in this season? Another thing that you must also do as you're asking yourself about truth is, what is the truth? What is the truth being revealed for me? Loss and grief is a revealer. It reveals you to yourself. It reveals the world to you, the people around you, and it reveals who God is to you. And so ask yourself, what is being revealed in this season? What am I discovering? But then finally, as we are being truthful, be honest about your capacity. Because when we are going through difficult seasons, our capacity is compromised. It's not lost, but it's compromised. And sometimes we must allow ourselves to come back. But with different capacity. Let me give you an example. I lost my mom in February last year. In May last year was the first time on Mother's Day I was not able to be on the pulpit. I have preached on Mother's Day for maybe over 15 years. Every Mother's Day I have been on a pulpit somewhere. But last year I couldn't. And I'd been scheduled to preach, and I just told Pastor, I can't. So acknowledge your capacity. Missy Superwoman, acknowledge that my capacity is compromised. Before then, I previously used to see a certain number of clients a week. Maybe, let's talk, but a certain number of clients a week. Currently, my capacity is still compromised. Currently, I am seeing less than 50% of what was my capacity in 2024. And I'm not judging myself for it. Because guess what? Even with my compromised capacity, my capacity has also evolved. Because last year, I was able to write 2 books. So allow yourself to acknowledge the evolution of your capacity, and it's not a bad thing. Seasons change, seasons come and seasons go. Foolish is the person who plants something today when the season has changed. When seasons come, acknowledge that season, embrace the season, and live through it. Grow through it. When the next season comes, embrace it as well and grow through it. But if you keep finding myself in this season and I am yearning for the season past, or I am only looking forward to the seasons to come, I will miss this season. So let the season that you're in give you everything that it has to give you in that season. Even the season of grief has something to give you. It has lessons to teach you. It has something to build in you. Allow yourself to be a student.
Wow. That's awesome. It's good to know that you can slow down and still make meaning. Every season has a meaning. It has a reason. So you can learn even from the grief and the difficult situations that you are in. As we close and take the questions, I would want to ask Pastor Hope, if resilience is a skill, what would it look like to intentionally train it?
That sounds like I'd already touched on it, and it still remains my response that you cannot train it theoretically. It has to be built as you journey through life and as you grow and become, better and wiser and more emotionally intelligent, more better in how you deal with your relationships. So it is a skill that can only be grown as you journey through life. But you have to be intentional. Just like with anything else, the inner work is an intentional work. You can choose to be the kind of person who's swept everywhere when situations come. You can choose to be the kind of a person who owns their situation and it becomes part of their identity. It becomes like a crutch so that you don't even want to overcome it because it has given you an identity. There are people who are stuck, not because they're not able to move forward, but because they have allowed whatever they're going through to give them an identity. And they want that self-pity. They want that affirmation. So it is inner work that will help you grow in your resilience. And as I speak about this, actually many of the things that are coming to my mind are things that I've put in my book, Becoming Before Belonging. So even resilience is something that you have to grow into. You have to become that person. Allow me to mention something that I know we've talked about grief, but we have shared our experiences of loss. There are people who are grieving lost opportunities. There are people who are grieving the idea of where they were meant to be or where they wanted to be, but they are not. And I want to go specifically to marriage, because women, we are relational. And I know there are many women here who are yearning for that season to come, for them to get married. Yeah? And so I want you to know that we see you and God is also seeing you. So don't give up on yourself. Don't feel like, this season is over. This man may not show up. Or don't also grieve so much over what happened in the past. Maybe there was a good guy, you let go of him, and you had clearly, God told you to leave him. But now you're feeling like maybe I should have just stuck with that one because it's better than nothing. No. As long as God spoke, keep your faith alive, keep anchoring yourself in the word. God sees you and he will meet you right where you are.
Wow. Thank you so much, Pastor Hope. Allow me to, our time is fast spent, and you'll allow me to pick 2 or 3 questions. A couple of them I know have been addressed as we had the conversations, so I'll quickly pick the ones that may not have been addressed. How does one navigate divorce or separation and co-parenting with difficult spouse? Maybe I ask that to Pastor Mueni.
One of the things that I began to do, a program that I run since 2018, is I run a program for people who've gone through divorce and separation. It's a 12-week program, and I've been running it for the last couple of years. And 95% of my participants have been women. Okay. And 100% of my participants have been Christians, or at least people who had a faith and had a relationship with God. So divorce is not something that happens out there. divorce is happening within the body of Christ. And the reason why divorce is happening within the body of Christ is because not every divorce is as a result of something you have said or done. But at the core of every divorce is sin. Not every divorce is as a result of your direct sin, but at the core of every divorce is sin. Either the sin of disobedience, or the sin of rebellion, or the sin of departure from the way that you began and moving differently, or the sin of having entered into something that you should not have entered into. At the core of every divorce, there is some sin. And it may not even necessarily be your sin. And I want us to be very clear about that. It even may be someone who pushed you into that marriage with whatever, for whatever reason. And this is not so that you can judge yourself if you've gone through divorce. I want you to be able to sit down and honestly ask yourself, how did I get into this marriage? Because many times, many of us get into marriage not aware that we are getting into marriage, but we are getting into marriage because there's something we are running away from. You're running away from, your biological clock is ticking. Like marriage stops the biological clock. So we get into marriage for all sorts of reasons. And so that's why I really want us to be clear about what I mean by at the core of every divorce is sin. And especially when I'm talking to people who are of the faith. What divorce does to us is that it causes, one of the biggest things that it does is that it causes you to second guess every other decision you make. Because you start asking yourself, if I could make a wrong decision, if I could miss out on something so, in making a decision so big in my life, what else do I not have capacity to make decisions for? So you constantly start second-guessing yourself. You second-guess yourself in your capacity to make choices. You second-guess yourself in capacity to choose right. And you can second-guess yourself even in the parenting space. And if you're not careful, the bitterness and the anger can come back to you and bite you. Because what happens when we go through grief, like Pastor Hope says, when pain is not processed, it is passed on. Hurt people hurt people. So the people that begin to feel the brunt of your anger, it can be your children. Yeah. And sometimes we want to believe that you're the parent that stayed, but sometimes you're the parent that had no choice. He or she left. So I had no choice but stay. And so it's not just about staying. It's about ensuring that the quality of your stay is good and healthy. And so it is good for us to stop and think, what kind of home environment am I giving to my children? Because your children in all this, even if he is like who, that's still their father. And some of us, because of the divorce complexities, sometimes we don't have spaces where we can actually pour our hearts out. So we are pouring our hearts out on our children who don't have capacity, and so they're not adults. So please find yourself adult conversations with adult people and have those conversations there, not with your children, because your children ultimately are children. Even when they are very mature, even when they are grown up, they're still children. So protect them.
Awesome. Yeah, let's learn to protect them as well.
Let me say something about the other parent. Mm-hmm. It's not your responsibility to judge them. They have a role to parent. Mm-hmm. You can support, but you can't do it for them. But also, you cannot be the one that is bad-mouthing your children. Bad-mouthing him to the children. Let him work out his relationship with the children. If it is not healthy, and the children come from seeing him, be the safe space where your children can come and pour to you. Not so that you can tell them, daddy alifanya nini? But so that you can hold it for them. Do not badmouth him. If you and I know that sometimes it is really, you really want to vent, find an adult. Go and vent somewhere else, but not to your children. sometimes we must also acknowledge that we need to protect our children. And sometimes the person that we need to protect our children from is the other parent. So you need to put boundaries for your children. If they're not being healthy with regards to your children, have a conversation with them. Unfortunately, healthy co-parenting is a very, very mature conversation that very many of us don't have capacity to. But we must always remember that while co-parenting is necessary when we have gone through divorce, the interests of the children must remain at the core of co-parenting and not the conflict between you and their father.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. I think our time is far spent and we should be bringing this to a close. However, we have very many questions, over 25 questions and still counting. So absolutely, it appears that you would have to have you on one of our Connect sessions, Pastor Jassy. We are looking to have Pastor Mueni and Pastor Hope Waiganjo again on one of our Connect sessions so that we can carry on these conversations and answer all the questions that we have here. But there's one that I would not want to let go before we close. Navigating a season you have been in for quite some time. Have in mind that there are people aware that you are in that shameful situation in church especially. How do you navigate such a situation? And here I want to pick from probably a lady who is in probably a very precarious situation. How do they navigate out of that and they were still in church?
Wow. I know we have such cases in church. And like I mentioned, I hope it's not a situation that you have the capacity and the ability to get out of, but you have, for one reason or the other, you have chosen not to grow out of, because we have such cases. And I know they are in all churches. Even if I mentioned here, I know you will say, yes, we know such. One of them is the financial one, where we have people who, even when you connect them with a job, they will give excuses not to go for the interview, but they will keep coming for handouts. So, of course, it's very hard to help people like that, who you have chosen to give alternative ways of helping them, but they find it easier to come to you for help, yet they can still get out of the situation. But the question is, they have been in that situation, it is shameful. How do they navigate it? As long as it is, what I believe is no season is permanent. As long as we are God's children, there is no season that is permanent. And as long as you're doing your part, because again, like we said, we have a responsibility over our lives. As much as God helps us, we also have to play our part. And if you're confident that you're playing your part, if, for example, it's a job situation, you're looking for jobs, you're looking for work, you're advancing yourself and your skills, trust God and trust the process. So even if you're going through shame, it is a season. Keep encouraging yourself that even the song told us, wale walikucheka, one day they will see God has lifted you. So don't be too, I think the problem we have is we are too focused on what people will say more than what is God saying. So if you're honoring God, you're walking in obedience, let the people say. You can't control what people say. You can't control how people see you. You can only control you and your attitudes and your mindsets and how you carry yourself.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much. I think we will not take further questions in the interest of time, but you will allow us to post in the questions, and I promise that I will push Pastor Jassy hard enough to make sure that we get these two in our Connect sessions. And they promise me, I know they're nodding in their hearts, they promise me they will come. Yeah, so thank you so much. We have come to the close of our session. Pastor Mueni said, any journey that does not have a destination ni kutangatanga. So sisi hatutangatangi. We have come to the close of this session, and we thank God for reminding us that as we come to the close of the Glam Grit Summit, may this leave us remembering that true strength is not in how we look, but in how we rise, how we endure, how we lead, and how we love. This summit reminds us that we are women of grace and resilience, capable of carrying vision with confidence and walking through challenges with courage. May the Glam capture attention, Glam may capture attention, yes, but let the grit sustain the purpose. Tell the lady next to you that purpose looks good on you. Thank you so much. We have come to the end of our session, and we are so happy that you listened to us. Asanteni sana.